Poor single mom mistook him as her Uber driver, unaware he was her new CEO millionaire boss. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The steady sound of rain drummed on the roof of a sleek black SUV, parked outside a crowded coffee shop in downtown Chicago. Inside the shop, people huddled over steaming cups, their laughter and chatter blurring into the soft hum of morning noise. Outside, a woman in a worn beige coat dashed through the rain, clutching her purse and an umbrella that had lost one of its ribs. Her name was Maya Thompson, 28 years old, a single mother who was already running late for the most important job interview of her life. Her breath came in shallow bursts as she pulled out her phone. The Uber app said, "Your driver is arriving now." A black car rolled to the curb at that exact moment. Without hesitation, Maya yanked open the back door, slid inside, and slammed it shut against the rain. Water dripped from her hair onto the leather seat. "Thank goodness," she said between breaths. "Downtown, please, North Tower building. I cannot be late again." The man in the front seat turned his head slightly. His voice was calm, low, and almost amused. "I think there has been a mistake." Maya froze, meeting a pair of gray eyes in the rearview mirror. "Wait, you are not my Uber driver?" He smiled faintly, the corner of his mouth curving upward. "No, I am not. But I can give you a ride if you are going that way." Her face flushed crimson. "Oh my God, I am so sorry. I swear this app drives me crazy. I will get out." "It is pouring rain," he interrupted gently. "You will be soaked before you reach the next corner. Buckle up. I promise I am not a serial killer." Despite herself, Maya laughed nervously and sank back into the seat. "You have a strange sense of humor, Mr. Ethan," he said simply. "And you?" "Maya," she replied. "Maya Thompson. And thank you for saving me from looking like a drowned cat." He chuckled, glancing at her through the mirror. "You are welcome, Maya Thompson." The car eased into traffic. For a few moments, silence filled the space between them, broken only by the rhythmic swish of the windshield wipers. Maya watched raindrops race down the window and thought about the rent notice taped to her refrigerator, the worn-out sneakers her daughter Lila had outgrown, and the stack of unpaid bills waiting on her kitchen counter. She tightened her grip on her purse. Ethan noticed her quietness but did not pry. Instead, he asked softly, "Big day ahead?" Maya nodded, forcing a small smile. "Job interview. Administrative assistant. I really need this one." He nodded once. "You sound determined." "I have to be," she said. "I am raising a 6-year-old on my own. Determination is kind of my only currency." Ethan's expression shifted, something almost gentle passing through his eyes, but he said nothing. When they reached the intersection, Maya pointed toward a tall glass building gleaming through the rain. "That is it. North Tower." He pulled over. "Good luck, Maya." "Thank you, Ethan." She reached for the door handle, then paused. "And again, sorry for, hijacking your car." He smiled, the same quiet curve that seemed to hide more than it revealed. "It was the best wrong pickup I have ever had." She laughed, stepped out into the drizzle, and ran toward the revolving doors. Ethan watched her disappear inside, her beige coat flashing once under the city lights before she was gone. He leaned back in his seat, a small hair clip glinting on the leather beside him, where she had Saturday. He picked it up, turning it between his fingers, a tiny pink butterfly. He smiled to himself. Outside, the rain fell harder. Inside, the engine hummed as Ethan whispered almost to no one, "Maya Thompson, let us see where that ride leads." Rain still lingered in the gray morning sky when Maya stepped out of the revolving doors of the North Tower building. Her pulse thudded in her ears. The glass lobby gleamed like a mirror of success, all polished marble and clean lines, the kind of place where her scuffed shoes did not belong. She straightened her coat and whispered to herself, "You can do this. Just breathe." At the reception desk, A woman with a sharp bun and a sharper tone handed her a visitor's badge. Elevator to the 12th floor. Human resources. Maya thanked her and hurried toward the elevator. The ride up felt endless. She watched her reflection in the steel doors, tired eyes, hair still damp from the rain, lipstick fading. She thought of her daughter Lila eating cereal alone that morning, humming to cartoons while Maya promised, "Mommy will come back with good news." The doors opened with a soft chime. A young assistant guided her into a waiting area where two other applicants sat, dressed in tailored suits. Maya smoothed her thrift store skirt and clutched the folder of resumes she had printed at the library. Her hands trembled slightly. Minutes crawled by until her name was called. Maya Thompson? She stood, almost knocking over her chair, and followed the voice into a spacious office. The interviewer, a man in his 40s with kind eyes, gestured for her to sit. "We have been looking for someone organized, dependable, and comfortable working under pressure. Tell me about yourself." Maya took a breath and began, her voice low but steady. She spoke about balancing two jobs, raising a child alone, and how she had learned to manage chaos with a calm heart. The man nodded approvingly. For the first time that day, hope flickered inside her chest. When the interview ended, he smiled. "We will be making decisions by the end of the week. Either way, thank you for coming." "Thank you for the opportunity," Maya said softly. She walked out, head high, though her stomach twisted with uncertainty. Outside, the drizzle had turned to a steady rain again. She opened her broken umbrella and started toward the bus stop. The wind flipped the fabric inside out. She laughed, half out of exhaustion, half out of disbelief. "Perfect," she muttered. By the time she reached home, a one-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city, her shoes were soaked through. She kicked them off by the door and was greeted by the small voice she loved most. "Mommy, did you get the job?" Lila ran to her, pigtails bouncing. Maya knelt down and hugged her tightly, breathing in the scent of peanut butter and crayons. "I do not know yet, sweetheart," she whispered, "but I think it went well." Lila pulled back and frowned. "You always say that." Maya smiled. "And one day it will be true." They spent the evening drawing together at the kitchen table. The light flickered from the old bulb above them, and Maya's sketches were filled with city skylines, places she dreamed of showing Lila someday. Later that night, after putting her daughter to bed, Maya sat by the small window, watching raindrops trail down the glass. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for trusting a stranger today. I hope the interview went well, Ethan." Maya blinked at the message. How had he found her number? Oh, of course, she had left her resume on the seat for a moment. Her contact info was printed at the top. She hesitated, then typed back, "Thank you again for the ride. You saved my morning." A moment later, another reply. "Maybe next time I will be your official driver." She laughed quietly to herself. For the first time in months, she felt something lighter than worry. Maybe the world still had room for small kindnesses. Across town, Ethan sat in his office on the top floor of the same building where Maya had just interviewed. The city lights reflected on the windows behind him. On his desk lay a tiny pink hair clip, still damp from the rain. He turned it over in his hand, smiling at the memory of the flustered woman in the beige coat who had mistaken him for an Uber driver. There was something about her, her honesty, her rough edges, her courage that felt rare. In a world of rehearsed conversations and polished masks, she had been real. He placed the clip in his drawer carefully, almost reverently, before leaning back in his chair. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, and the skyline flickered with lightning. Ethan whispered to the empty room, "Let us see if destiny is as stubborn as she is." And somewhere on the other side of that same city, a tired single mother whispered a small prayer before sleep. Please, just one good break. Though neither of them knew that their paths were already bound tighter than fate itself. A few days later, sunlight finally broke through the gray clouds that had lingered over Chicago for an entire week. Maya woke to the sound of her daughter's laughter from the living room. For a moment, she forgot about bills, job interviews, and rejection emails. She simply listened. It was a small sound, but it filled their cramped apartment with warmth. She poured herself a cup of coffee, trying to quiet the familiar anxiety in her chest. She had not heard back from the company. Every hour felt heavier than the last. Still, she told herself that waiting was better than a no. She checked her phone again, but there was no message from Ethan, either. She smiled faintly. Get a grip, Maya. He was just being nice. Before she could sink deeper into her thoughts, the phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Good morning, Miss Thompson. This is Human Resources from North Tower Financial. We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for the position. Congratulations, and welcome to the team. Maya's knees went weak. Oh my God, thank you so much. After the call ended, she pressed a hand to her chest and exhaled shakily. We did it, Lila, she whispered. Mommy got the job. Lila squealed, running around the couch with joy. Does that mean we can buy real cereal again? Maya laughed through tears. Yes, sweetheart, real cereal and maybe even a new backpack. 2 days later, she stood outside the glass doors of the company that would soon become her new world. She wore a neatly ironed blouse she had borrowed from her neighbor, and the only pair of heels she owned. Her reflection in the lobby glass looked nervous but proud. The receptionist handed her a badge. Welcome aboard, Miss Thompson. You will be working on the executive floor. Maya blinked. Executive floor. That must be a mistake. I applied for an assistant position. The receptionist smiled politely. No mistake. You will assist the Chief Executive Officer's office. The words made her stomach tighten. Chief Executive Officer? She repeated under her breath. The elevator doors opened before she could ask anything more. The 12th floor was quieter, more refined. Frosted glass walls. Soft lighting. The faint hum of distant printers. A young assistant greeted her. You must be Maya, right this way. They stopped in front of a set of tall wooden doors. The assistant knocked once, then pushed them open. Maya stepped inside and froze. Ethan Cole looked up from behind a sleek desk, the skyline of Chicago glowing behind him. He was dressed in a charcoal suit, sleeves rolled just enough to reveal his watch. That same calm, composed expression she had seen in the car lingered on his face, but this time there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Maya's heart stumbled in her chest. Her voice caught. You are the new boss? Ethan stood, a polite smile curving his lips. It seems so, and you must be my new assistant. Her mind raced. The rain, the car. Her ridiculous mistake, every memory came crashing back. She wanted the ground to swallow her whole. I had no idea, she stammered. He stepped closer, his tone steady but kind. Do not worry, Maya. What happened that day stays between us. You were honest, and I respect that. Oh, Maya forced a shaky smile. I appreciate that, Mr. Cole. He nodded toward the desk beside his. You will work here. My schedule is intense, but you will manage it just fine. For the rest of the morning, she buried herself in spreadsheets, emails, and meeting notes, trying to appear professional while her pulse refused to calm. Every time Ethan spoke low and even, giving instructions or thanking her, she could still hear the echo of that moment in the car when he had said, "Buckle up." No. During lunch, she sat alone in the small break room, nibbling on a sandwich she could barely taste. 2 colleagues whispered near the coffee machine. That is the new assistant for the chief executive officer. Heard she is a single mom, probably a charity hire. Maya lowered her gaze and clenched her hands together under the table. Let them talk, she murmured to herself. You are here because you earned it. Later that day, Ethan walked by and paused. You have done well today. I noticed how you handled that client issue. Most people would have panicked. She looked up, surprised. Thank you. I was terrified, actually. He smiled. Courage does not mean you are never afraid, Maya. It means you keep going anyway. Her eyes softened. Then I suppose I have plenty of courage. That night, as she rode the bus home, her mind swirled with exhaustion and something else, something gentler. Fate, perhaps. She looked out the window at the rain beginning again, streaking the city lights into gold. Back in his office, Ethan watched the same rain fall against the glass. He opened his drawer, took out the small pink hair clip, and turned it in his palm. His reflection in the window looked almost like a stranger, he whispered to himself. Best wrong pickup I ever had. And far across the city, in a tiny apartment filled with the smell of mac and cheese, Maya smiled for no reason she could name. The following weeks moved like a blur of deadlines, meetings, and late nights at the office. Maya learned quickly, keeping notes on everything Ethan preferred: how he liked his coffee, black with 1 packet of sugar, how he paused before every major decision, how he always stayed calm, even when others lost their temper. She admired that control, even if it made him seem distant. One evening, most of the staff had gone home, but the light still glowed under Ethan's office door. Maya knocked softly, holding a folder. "Mr. Cole, here are the final budget reports for next quarter." "Come in," he said without looking up. She stepped closer, setting the folder on his desk. The skyline stretched behind him, streaks of orange and blue fading into the night. "You should go home, Mr. Cole. You have been here since 7 this morning." He finally looked up, eyes tired but warm. "And you have been here since 7 too, Maya. You do not exactly take your own advice." "Oh," she laughed quietly. "Fair point." He leaned back in his chair. "You are adapting faster than most people I have hired. How do you stay so composed?" Maya hesitated, glancing down. "Because I cannot afford to fall apart. I have a daughter who needs me to be strong." Ethan's expression softened. "You mentioned her before Lila, right?" Maya smiled. "Yes, she is 6 years old, full of opinions, and already smarter than me." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Ethan said gently, "You remind me of someone I used to know, someone who believed kindness could survive in business." "Did it?" she asked. His lips curved faintly. "It tries." A few days later, the company prepared for its annual charity gala. Maya's duties multiplied guest lists, invitations, seating charts. The event supported single-parent scholarships, something that struck close to her heart. On the afternoon before the gala, Ethan called her into his office. "You will attend tomorrow," he said simply. She blinked. "Me? Sir, I am just staff. You organized half the event. You deserve to be there." Maya tried to protest, but he handed her a small black envelope. Inside was a formal invitation and a note in his handwriting. "A night to remember." That evening, back at her apartment, she stared at the dress hanging from her closet door, a borrowed navy gown from her neighbor. Lila spun in circles beside her, squealing, "Mommy, you look like a princess." Maya smiled, adjusting the hem. "Princesses do not pay rent, sweetheart." When the next evening came, the ballroom sparkled under crystal chandeliers. Maya stood at the edge of the crowd, clutching her small clutch bag. Her heart pounded as Ethan approached through the sea of guests. He looked different outside the office, relaxed, almost human. "You clean up well," she said softly. He chuckled. "You are not so bad yourself." They stood side by side as the host announced the start of the auction. Maya watched him move through the crowd with ease, greeting donors and shaking hands. She realized that beneath the polish, Ethan carried the same quiet loneliness she often felt. Later, during a short break, they found themselves on the terrace overlooking the city. A breeze carried the faint sound of music from inside. "Chicago looks different from up here," Maya said. "It does," Ethan replied. "But it is not the height that changes it, it is the company." She turned to him, caught off guard by the warmth in his voice. For a heartbeat, the noise of the gala faded away. Then someone called his name. Ethan looked toward the sound, then back at her. "Duty calls," he said with a wry smile. "Go," she answered, forcing a smile of her own. As he walked away, Maya felt a strange mixture of pride and sadness. For the first time, she saw him not just as her boss, but as a man who carried his own weight of solitude. She looked out over the glowing skyline, the wind tugging gently at her hair. Somewhere deep inside, she sensed that this night would change everything, though she could not yet see how. The following morning, the office buzzed with whispers about the gala. Photos filled the company's website and social feeds, smiling faces, champagne glasses, flashes of gold and silver. Maya tried to keep her head down as she passed a group of co-workers near the elevators. "Did you see the boss with his assistant?" one of them said. "She is lucky he even looked her way." Another laughed. "Maybe luck is her strongest skill." Maya's chest tightened, but she forced herself to keep walking. She had dealt with worse comments before. People always assumed a woman like her must have gotten ahead through favors, not effort. Still, it stung. In her small office, she focused on her work, typing out follow-up emails from the event. Her fingers moved fast, her jaw set, The door opened softly behind her. "Rough morning?" Ethan's voice carried a calm. She both welcomed and feared. She turned, standing quickly. "Just busy, sir." He studied her face for a moment. "Do not listen to office noise. You earned your place here." "I know," she said quietly. "But sometimes it feels like the world forgets that." He nodded slowly. "I understand more than you think." Then, after a pause, he added, "You handled yourself well last night. You belonged there." "Thank you," she replied, though her voice wavered. "I just wanted to make sure everything ran smoothly." He smiled. "It did, because of you." For the first time, she noticed the faint exhaustion behind his steady posture. Maybe he carried expectations too heavy for any one person. Maybe they were not as different as she thought. Later that week, an unexpected storm hit the city. The evening meeting ran late, and most of the staff had already left. Maya gathered her papers, glancing out the tall windows where rain streaked like silver threads. "Let me give you a ride," Ethan said as she packed up. "That is not necessary," she answered quickly. "I take the bus." "The buses are barely running in this weather," he replied. "Please, I insist." She hesitated, then nodded. "All right, thank you." Oh. They rode in silence through flooded streets, the hum of the tires mixing with the rain. It felt strangely familiar, like the first day they met. "Do you ever regret anything?" she asked suddenly, staring at the window fogged by her breath. Ethan glanced at her. "Every person has regrets. Mine is letting work become my entire identity." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe it is not too late to change that." "Oh." He looked at her again, and for a moment, the air between them felt charged with something unspoken. When they reached her apartment building, she unbuckled her seatbelt. "Thank you for the ride, Ethan." He paused. "You said my first name." Her cheeks warmed. "I guess it felt right." She stepped out into the rain, her hair clinging to her face, and hurried toward the stairs. Ethan watched her go, his hand resting on the steering wheel, expression unreadable. Inside her apartment, Lila ran to the window. "Mommy, you are soaked." Maya laughed, scooping her daughter into her arms. "I know, but I made it home." As she closed the curtains, she caught a glimpse of the black car still parked outside. Ethan sat there for a long moment before driving away into the rain. That night, Maya could not sleep. She lay awake listening to the storm, replaying the way his voice had softened when he said her name. Somewhere between exhaustion and wonder, she whispered into the dark, "Maybe the wrong ride was never really wrong after all." The week after the storm felt like a calm after thunder. The air around the office softened somehow, though Maya could not explain why. Ethan had become a little less distant, a little more human. He greeted the staff in the mornings now, not just with a nod but with actual words. And every so often, when his eyes met hers across the conference table, something unspoken passed between them, something warm, quiet, and unsettling. On Friday afternoon, the company hosted a charity update in the main hall. Donors, executives, and partners gathered under bright lights while cameras clicked. Maya worked behind the scenes, organizing papers, guiding guests, making sure every name card was in its place. She liked being invisible here. It was easier than pretending she belonged among people in expensive suits. But when the host stepped to the podium and tapped the microphone, the room hushed. "Before we close, our chief executive officer would like to share a story." Maya froze. She knew that voice. Ethan stepped forward, tall and composed, the same faint smile she had seen 100 times in meetings. But this time, his tone carried something different, something personal. "Last year," he began, "I met someone by accident. She mistook me for an Uber driver." The crowd chuckled softly. Maya's heart slammed against her ribs. "She apologized," he continued, "and I offered her a ride. I did not know it then, but that short drive would remind me of something I had forgotten, that courage and grace are not tied to titles or wealth. They live in the hearts of those who refuse to give up." Every word echoed through the hall. Maya wanted to vanish, to slip out the side door before anyone looked her way, but the spotlight seemed to find her anyway. Ethan's gaze drifted to where she stood, frozen among the crowd. For a brief, electric moment, their eyes met. He finished with a quiet smile. "That woman works here now, and she reminds me every day that strength wears many faces." Applause filled the room, but Maya could not move. Her cheeks burned. People turned to whisper, piecing the story together. She forced herself to stay composed until the event ended, then hurried toward the exit, clutching her notebook like a shield. Outside, cool evening air hit her face. She made it halfway down the steps before she heard him behind her. "Maya, wait." She turned. He was already there, coat draped over one arm, eyes searching hers. "I should have asked before mentioning you," he said. "It was not my intention to embarrass you." Her voice trembled. "You told the entire company that story, Ethan. People were laughing." "They were not laughing at you," he replied gently. "They were moved. I wanted them to see what I see." "And what is that?" she demanded. He hesitated. "Someone who keeps standing no matter how heavy the world gets." Her anger faltered, replaced by something far more painful. "You cannot use me as an example, Ethan. My life is not a story for you to tell." Oh, rain began to fall again, light and steady, as if the city itself was listening. Ethan stepped closer, but stopped a few feet away. "You are right," he said softly. "I was wrong to speak without asking, but I meant every word." Maya shook her head, tears mixing with the rain. "I need space, please." He nodded once, silent, watching her walk away until her figure disappeared into the mist. When she reached the corner, she turned for just a second. Ethan still stood there, motionless in the rain, holding the coat he had meant to offer her. For the first time since they met, they were both lost for words. The following days unfolded in silence. Maya went to work, kept her head down, and avoided any reason to cross paths with Ethan. She sat through meetings without looking at him, answered emails with mechanical precision, and left the office exactly on time. The laughter from the charity event still echoed in her mind, twisting into something crueler each time she remembered it. Her coworkers had stopped whispering, but the damage was done. Every glance felt like judgment, every smile like pity. At home, she tried to hide her exhaustion from Lila, pretending that everything was fine. But children sense truth more easily than adults. "Mommy, are you sad?" Lila asked one night as they sat on the couch, watching cartoons. Maya brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face and forced a smile. "Just tired, baby. Grown-ups get tired sometimes." Lila hugged her. "You need ice cream. That fixes everything." Maya laughed softly, holding her close. "Maybe you are right." But later that night, when Lila was asleep, Maya sat by the window and stared out at the city lights. She had worked so hard to build her life again, brick by fragile brick, and one careless moment had cracked it open. The thought of seeing Ethan every day felt unbearable. The next morning, she typed her resignation letter. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time before she pressed send. By noon, Ethan stood in her doorway, the message still fresh on his screen. "You are leaving?" Maya kept her gaze on the papers in front of her. "It is for the best." He stepped inside slowly. "Maya, do not do this because of me." "I am doing this because of me," she said quietly. "I cannot work where I am a story, not a person." Ethan looked at her for a long time, searching for the right words, but found none. "You have nothing to prove to anyone, not even to me." She finally looked up. "That is the problem, Ethan. I wanted to prove myself too much. I forgot that I already had." He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. The silence between them was heavy, filled with things neither dared to say. When she left that evening, the office felt strangely hollow. Ethan watched from the window as she crossed the street, her umbrella bright against the gray drizzle. He wanted to call out, to stop her, but he knew she needed space. Back at her apartment, Maya exhaled a long, shaky breath. Lila ran into her arms, and for a moment, the world felt right again. But when Maya tucked her into bed later that night, she could not shake the ache in her chest, the feeling that something important had ended before it had a chance to begin. Across town, Ethan sat alone in his dark office. On his desk lay the small pink hair clip, its color faded from time. He turned it over in his hand, whispering to the empty room, "I never meant to lose her." 2 weeks passed. The city moved on, but Ethan could not. The empty desk outside his office reminded him every morning of what he had lost. He tried to drown himself in work, but even the board noticed the shift. He was quieter, less certain. Every night, when the building emptied, he stayed behind, staring at the small pink hair clip on his desk. It had once been a symbol of chance. Now it felt like regret made solid. One evening, he received an email from the company's foundation team. The annual community proposal review was overdue. Among the pending submissions, one name caught his eye: Maya Thompson. Her application described a new initiative called Project Lila, a training and employment program designed for single mothers returning to the workforce. Ethan read every word twice. The proposal was practical, compassionate, and fiercely determined, just like her. Without hesitation, he called the foundation's director. "Approve it," he said. "I will fund the entire pilot myself." 2 days later, Maya received an unexpected invitation to a community center downtown. The sender's name was unfamiliar, but curiosity won. When she arrived, she was greeted by rows of banners that read, "Project Lila, empowering mothers, building futures." Volunteers bustled around, setting up computers and training booths. At the center of the room stood Ethan, holding a small stack of papers. Maya froze. "What are you doing here?" He turned, a gentle smile forming. "This is your project, Maya. I just made sure the world would see it." She blinked in disbelief. "You funded this?" "I only opened the door," he said. "You built everything that matters." Her throat tightened. "Why would you do this after everything that happened?" "Because you were right," he said softly. "I used your story without asking. I told myself it was admiration. But it was pride. I wanted people to see you the way I did. I just forgot that you did not need my voice. You already had your own." Tears welled in her eyes. "You did not have to fix this." "I did not do it to fix anything," Ethan replied. "I did it because kindness deserves more than an apology. It deserves action." For a long moment, they stood in silence, surrounded by the quiet hum of hope and new beginnings. Maya finally smiled, the first real smile he had seen in weeks. "Lila will be proud," she whispered. "I already am," he said. That evening, as the sun dipped low behind the city skyline, the lights of Project Lila glowed like beacons through the glass windows. Inside, Maya stood beside Ethan, watching the volunteers at work. For the first time since their paths crossed, they were equals not by chance, but by choice. And for the first time, the wrong ride finally felt like the right destination. A full year passed, and Project Lila had grown far beyond what Maya ever imagined. What began as a small community program now filled 3 city centers, training dozens of single mothers to rebuild their lives and careers. News outlets praised the initiative, calling it the heart of North Tower Financial. But for Maya, the real reward came each time a mother held her first paycheck or smiled with newfound confidence. That was success to her. Ethan had remained a quiet partner, never claiming public credit. He attended meetings, offered support, and always stepped back so Maya could lead. Their friendship had slowly rebuilt itself on honesty, mutual respect, and something deeper neither of them dared to name. On the evening of the first anniversary celebration, the main hall of Project Lila shimmered with lights and laughter. Volunteers, mothers, and children filled the space with warmth. A stage stood at the front, decorated with photographs of the program's milestones. In the center of it all, Maya adjusted her microphone with trembling hands. "Thank you," she began, her voice steady but full of feeling. "A year ago, I was just a woman looking for one good break. Today, I stand among people who remind me that hope is not something you find. It is something you build, one act of courage at a time." Applause rippled through the hall. Maya smiled, glancing toward the side of the stage where Ethan stood. He nodded, eyes bright with pride. When the crowd quieted, he stepped forward. "Before this night ends," he said, "I would like to share a small reminder of how it all began." He reached into his jacket pocket and held up a small glass box. Inside, resting under the soft glow of the stage lights, was the tiny pink hair clip, the one that had fallen in his car on that rainy morning. Gasps filled the room. Maya's hands flew to her mouth. "This," Ethan said, "was the first sign that fate has a sense of humor. A single moment of confusion led me to someone who changed not only my company, but my understanding of strength, love, and leadership." He turned toward her, his voice growing softer. "Maya Thompson, you taught me that leadership is not measured by power, but by compassion. You showed me that success means lifting others, and if you will let me, I want to keep learning from you for the rest of my life." He opened the box, revealing a simple gold ring beside the pink clip. The crowd fell silent. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Ethan," he smiled, Will you marry me, not as your boss, not as your savior, but as the man who was lucky enough to take the wrong ride with you that day?" The room erupted in cheers and applause. Lila ran to the stage, throwing her arms around her mother's waist. "Say yes, Mommy!" Maya laughed through her tears. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." "Oh." Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, and for the first time, the hair clip and the ring symbols of mistake and destiny rested together in her hands. Later that night, as the celebration wound down, Maya and Ethan stood outside beneath the soft glow of the city lights. Lila danced in circles nearby, humming her own tune. Maya leaned against him and whispered, "Do you ever think about that first morning?" Ethan chuckled quietly. "Every day. It reminds me that sometimes the wrong turn leads exactly where you are meant to go." She smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "Then I am glad I took that ride." The city glimmered around them, alive with rain and promise, as their story born from one small mistake finally found its perfect ending.